The greatest leaders are not remembered because how many people served them. They're remembered because how many people they served. In a world that often equates leadership with power, position, and authority, the most influential leaders understand the different truth. People don't follow titles. They follow leaders who genuinely care about them. Influence grows, service becomes a lifestyle.
Faith, business, legacy. Welcome to Strategies for Success.
Hi, guys, and welcome back.
Welcome back. I'm Tyler.
I'm Trav.
So as always, we're going to start off with our scripture of the day. It's found in Mark 10:45, where even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many.
It's pretty impressive how Jesus changed the entire understanding on how leadership works. Mm-hmm. People were expecting this great king to come in and say, hey, I'm here to take over. And he said, no, I'm here to serve.
Right. Exactly. Ultimate example of leadership right there.
Absolutely. So I want to share a quick story with us. In 1964, a gentleman was sentenced to life in prison for 27 years. He sat behind bars for 27 years. Think about that. Many people would have emerged from prison very angry, bitter, seeking revenge, especially after enduring injustice. But he chose a different path. While imprisoned, he spent years studying, learning, growing, preparing himself for leadership. Even while confined, he understood something that people never learned. Leadership begins long before the title arrives. When he was finally released in 1990 in South Africa, he stood at a crossroad. The nation was deeply divided, tensions were high, violence seemed possible. Many expected him to use his newfound power to settle old scores. Instead, he chose to reconcile. He chose service. One of the most remarkable things about him was the ability to listen. Those who worked closely with him often observed that he spent time asking questions rather than giving answers. He wanted people to feel heard, valued, and respected. He understood that influence wasn't about forcing people to follow. It's about helping people want to follow. One famous example occurred during the 1995 Rugby World Cup. South Africa's rugby team had long been viewed as the symbol of division. Yet publicly, he supported the team. He wore their jersey. He encouraged nationality and unity. His actions helped bring people together when division seemed easier. Because real leaders don't simply lead people, they serve people. Through that service, he earned influence. And that leader was Nelson Mandela.
Few of you may have heard of him.
Yeah, pretty famous.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what stands out to me is that he could have used his power to force change, but instead he used service to inspire change. That's a completely different kind of leadership.
Exactly. We're going to hop into the service influence model. So first of all, we're going to talk about how service builds trust. So think about someone that you would accompany, or even a person that you know that you think of them as trustworthy. You think of them as having good service. So they usually go hand in hand with one another. In a leadership aspect, people usually trust leaders who serve others, not because they're required to, not because it's good to trust people. It's good to trust people and follow them once they gain your trust. And a lot of that comes from demonstrating. The leaders will demonstrate humility, concern for others, and commitment. So what they're hoping for, what they're hoping to achieve. Many leaders want influence before trust, and it usually doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
You can't skip the foundation. The fastest way to build trust is to serve. So when people know that you really care about them, and not just like you're checking a box, but that you truly care about them, then they will become far more willing to follow you.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, before we started, tonight we were talking about USA 250 years and different leaders, and we were talking about President Washington and a different style of leadership. someone who was willing to serve, someone who was willing to lead from the front. One of the first that was a battle tested, individual, not just a politician, didn't want to be the leader. And they said, look, there's nobody else to do it. We need someone who can serve, that knows how to lead. And he was the guy.
Exactly.
That's the different type of leadership.
And people follow those who value them. So think about somebody, if you really value somebody else or somebody else really values you, that's mutually beneficial, and that's somebody that you'd really want to follow if they truly value. Think about, do I matter? Am I appreciated? Does anyone notice? Everyone wants to know those things, but great leaders really make you feel that you do matter, that you're appreciated, and that they do notice you.
I met with a leader today, a pastor of a church, has multiple campuses, and first thing that he did is not sit there and tell me how great or everything that he, what he's doing is going. He wanted to get to know me. How many boys do you have? Just about me personally, about what my ideas were. And it really made me feel that he heard and understood me, because he cared about me personally on a personal level before he ever tried to lead me or to do anything.
I think a lot of that comes from having conversations with others and asking the right questions so that you can get to know them, and that people will really feel like you do value them because you are taking the time to talk to them and actually listening to them and remembering the answers they give you, not just, yeah, just, moving on with it. You're actually truly paying attention to the conversation and remembering that the next time you see them. But people are not motivated simply by compensation.
Oh, yeah.
They're motivated by significance. You've seen that multiple times where there's times where people could be making a lot of money, but they hate their job, and they could take a job where they're not getting paid as much and they love it and their life's much better. And a lot of that comes by they're feeling significant, feeling like they're really making a difference, and that they're, fulfilling their purpose in a lot of ways.
Yeah, we've talked about it before, but that law of reciprocity, and it goes the same way with leadership. When you're leading and you actually care about people and, hey, man, this person's hurting or this person's in a time of need, or you go back to spend time personally with them. And probably one of the biggest things that stuck out to me on this topic, you remember when we were at the John Maxwell training and he said something, we got to go to the private lunch. It was our first time there. We were pretty stoked. It was a small room, and he come in and he did a question and answer with us. I think there was probably about 30 people in the room. And he said, a lot of people have asked me, John, I guess you've never been hurt, because you just love people and you want to help people. You want to see them grow. And he said, I just laughed because he said, I've been hurt so many times. He said, I had a guy that I thought was going to be, my main man forever. And he up and left in a way that was almost like a backstab. And he said, at that point I got for where I went through about 2 to 3 years of, I can't trust these people. These people are out to get me. And John Maxwell said something that really stuck, because I know we've shared this before, but when my nephew was killed there in Haiti, there was a lot of times it's like, I don't know if I ever want to care that much about somebody again, because it hurts so bad when you lose somebody like that. And I thought back, and it's funny because he's in our studio with us today, but my little buddy Nugget, I didn't know if I wanted to open myself up for hurt, with a dog or whatever it was. And I remember thinking back to John Maxwell. He said, look, I'm just going to love people, and I'm going to love them passionately, and I'm going to give my all. And it's not because, that I'm trying to do something great. I'm doing it because I truly love these people and I want to see what's best for them. Mm-hmm. That's an awesome example of leadership.
Yeah, and I think doing that despite you're being who you want to be, regardless of people around you and your circumstances, I think that goes a long ways for sure.
It was just like the story we shared. John probably could have sought out these guys for revenge, and probably been like, I'm going to blackball that guy from every leadership conference from here to the end of time, Yeah. Or he could just say good luck and more power to you. I'm moving on, you're moving on, and thanks for everything you did.
Yeah.
And that's tough. I've had to do it before. I've had employees quit, and I've thought back to that example of leadership. I had some that were just insubordinate and just, I was like thinking in my mind, I cannot wait for this person to leave. And when they finally left, or they were, I had one that had quit and said he found a better job. And of course, going on and on about how great everything was. Can't wait to get out of here. And I wanted to go back there and really tell him what I thought. And I thought back to some of this stuff. I went back and I shook his hand and said, man, I just really appreciate everything you did. And it shut all of that up. Because what do you say to that? You want someone to come back and kind of come at you so that you can just tell them off.
Right.
And when I come back and I thought, I'm just going to apply the John Maxwell rule here. And I just went back and said, man, I just want to tell you, thank you for everything you did while you worked here. And, do you ever need anything, just reach out. We're always friends and family up here at the store.
Yeah.
And I just want to continue that. I think that's the example of leadership to follow. That's a Jesus example of leadership.
Mm-hmm. And leaders who value people, they don't just listen to them, they encourage them.
Yep.
They recognize when others give effort, and they celebrate growth. Talking about growth, you're pushing people to get better, to be the best versions of themselves, but you also celebrate it along the way. And a lot of times you think if you're on a team and you're working towards certain goals and stuff, a lot of times those goals over time will fade, but people usually don't forget how the leader made them feel. They may forget what they accomplished, but they don't really forget how the person made them feel. So they'll often remember the feelings and stuff around that situation more than what they actually accomplished.
I'll throw one out here, and no pun intended, because I'm going to talk about the Savannah Bananas, but reading the book, Fans First, and we've been studying it at work. We do a leadership training every month at our work. And me and Tyler, when we were at the Maxwell thing, we actually got to see Jesse Cole. He was right up ahead of us, and he didn't enter like everybody else. He came running in, high-fiving and everything. But here's what struck me. I got toward the end of his book, and he was talking about this right here, that commitment to watch people grow. And he said, that doesn't just mean that they grow with your company. What if that person gets an opportunity to go do something that's a dream job or something they always wanted to go to grow? Maybe they've outgrown you. Mm-hmm. And he said, a lot of people are like, don't let the door hit you, on your way out. And he said, in the Savannah Bananas, we don't do that. We congratulate people and thank them and tell them how much we appreciate them. And that hit. That's hard.
Oh, yeah, it would be tough. Yeah, you kind of feel like betrayed a little bit naturally.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially like people you've put time and invested into, and then they say, hey, I found something better. It's almost like you're not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
But
exactly.
If you're invested into somebody committed to watch them grow, then that's what you got to do.
Yeah, and a lot of times if they do truly feel valued, their loyalty will increase, their commitment grows, they'll probably want to work harder, they'll feel like they'll actually be a part of the team and actually be bought into what you're trying to accomplish.
You know what I noticed? We started doing that several years ago when people were leaving the company. We just told them thank you for all they did. Mm-hmm. And here's what's crazy. Our employee return rates from employees who had left to wanting to come back doubled. And so we've had 3 or 4, 5 employees that have left and came back and said, man, I had a pretty good thing here. Can I come back on? And that really spoke to me that this works.
Yeah.
Because they realized, hey, that guy over there cared about me.
Mm-hmm. So what are some ways you think that leaders can make people feel seen and appreciated? You got any good examples of that? Good ideas?
Well, I learned here recently talking about, the different types of leaders, and I'm one of those leaders I'm watching the clock. All right, guys, we got this to do. We got to go. I got to be up there. I got to get this done. And I don't stop and get to know guys and ask their name. I'm not one of those people that walks slowly through a big crowd. I'm not. I'm one of those people that walks through a crowd with a mission because I'm headed somewhere. And so I think it starts right there. If you're one of those kind of people, I think that you have to purposely stop and shake people's hands and take the time to say, hey, how are you doing? And don't say it like, hey, how are you doing? So you can move on with your life. You sincerely ask that person and then say, hey, is there anything I can do for you? And I've noticed that even around our store, just taking a little bit of time. And you don't have to spend a fortune. You don't have to have an entire HR department to care. Just go back and shake their hand, say, hey, I appreciate everything you're doing. Is everything going good? You need anything? And you'd be surprised how far that goes.
Yeah.
A birthday card, work anniversary.
Yeah, it's often just small things can really mean a lot to people.
Yeah, it really does. We probably need to bring it back, but at work, we used to randomly take somebody to lunch.
Yeah.
Sometimes that goes a long way. It may not be that big of a deal to you, but when you're the boss and you go back and say, hey, I'd like to take you to lunch, that means something.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, influence grows through humility as well. So think about humility. A lot of times it's often misunderstood.
Yeah.
It's not just thinking, not really just thinking less of yourself, but it's thinking of yourself less often. Strongest leaders don't really need every spotlight. They don't have to get all the applause, or don't have to get credit for everything. It's letting others take credit for stuff. If you're working on something as a group or a team, let other people have the credit. You don't have to get all the glory for everything. And you can focus on helping others succeed rather than just trying to feel like you accomplished that by yourself, when really you often have a lot of people helping you along the way.
Yeah, humility, when it's misunderstood, I think a lot of times people misunderstand it for weakness.
Yeah. Or not confident enough.
I was reading about a couple heroes of mine, one of them Davy Crockett, and the other one I've been studying some of our presidents leading into this 250 celebration coming up on July 4th. And I was reading about Theodore Roosevelt. And what was interesting there is both these guys, and I'll explain, but they both like self-deprecating humor, you know. So what is that? Well, for example, someone would say something to Crockett and he'd laugh about himself. You know, he'd make a joke about himself. Or there was an example where Theodore Roosevelt at one point was the police commissioner in New York. And he came out and there's a big guy, big fat guy dressed. I think probably had like a pillow in his shirt, but he's dressed like him, flipping suspenders and everything. And instead of going out there and starting a riot among these people that were upset and protesting him, he went out and he said, "Man, you're looking awful handsome today." You know, and then everyone just started cracking up because it was obviously way done over the top to make fun of him. But he took it and made a joke. And real leaders, they can laugh at themselves.
Yeah.
And that's not always easy to do because we think that, hey, they need to respect me. But one thing I've learned over the years is you're not going to force somebody to respect you. They're going to respect you just like what we're talking about through humility and through service.
Mm-hmm. Oftentimes, if you're chasing influence or you're chasing to get all the glory, the credit, that's usually when you lose it. People probably lose a little respect for you because you're just caring about how others view you and not really focusing on others and how you're treating them.
So my dad told me a famous quote from Harry Truman, and I've tried to apply it, and it is a good one. But he said, "It's amazing what we can accomplish when it doesn't matter who gets the credit."
Yeah.
And when you got to have the credit, and the Bible talks about that too. When you got to have the credit, that's your reward right there. But those who don't need the credit, they get their reward from God.
Mm-hmm.
Just imagine if you're on a team and you got a coach that's always taking credit for all your wins. Now flip that around, and now you have a coach that's always talking about, man, you right there, the kicker or the guy that made the home run or the guy that shot the 3-point. You as a team, you know, you brought us together for the win. Whether that guy did or didn't, he's going to play that much harder on the next game.
Yeah. Kind of made me think of the verse from Matthew where it says, "Whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it." So I was saying in little ways, it just kind of reminded me, if you're just chasing the glory or chasing the money or chasing the fame, recognition, a lot of times you won't have it. But if you really give it up to God and are humble before others and before God, you know, that's a lot of times when you are the most successful, and you will continue to be successful and have people's respect.
Absolutely. Well, hey, it's time to jump into the FBL.
Yeah.
Remind everybody what that is, Tyler.
FBLs for faith, business, and legacy. So we always want to relate the topic and the lesson of the week. We want to relate it back to how it affects faith, business, and legacy.
You got it. And so I'm going to throw this quick advertisement in. Me and Tyler this week, we're really excited to bring on 3 sponsors. We brought on Pins and Aces, and that's a company that I've started doing some business with. Me and Tyler both enjoy a round of golf. They make some really unique head covers. But if you use that code right there, FBL for Faith, Business, Legacy, all you guys type in the 3 letters, FBL, you can save 21% at Pins and Aces. We've brought on Strong Coffee. Strong Coffee, you can save 20% with the same code. And then a really cool Bare Knuckles, and it is a leather glove company, and you can save 15% on any of your orders. And so I'd encourage you, please go out there and check those out. Go to check out our new website. Website is strategiesforsuccess.studio, and we are in the process of developing an app that will be released coming up here in the next couple weeks, and we want you guys to be part of that. Now let's dive into faith.
Yeah. So why did Jesus choose servant leadership? What makes service central to Christianity? How can serving others strengthen our faith? Why is humility difficult for many leaders? What examples of servant leadership stand out in Scripture? So there's a lot of hard-hitting questions there.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't say have a perfect answer for a lot of them. A lot of them can really make you think for a long time. As far as like why Jesus chose servant leadership, I think that's the most powerful form of leadership, showing that you really care about others and just giving us the ultimate example of leadership. I mean, like Travis was mentioning earlier, it was Jesus, so he could have done whatever he wanted to, but yet he washed people's feet and he was a servant to those around him.
Think about how sad it was, but the men watching him struggle for breath on the cross, they're even taunting him, saying, if you're God, then call down legions of angels or come off the cross. And at any given time, I mean, I can't imagine, any human would be like, you're done. We're done with this, finished. But Jesus said, Father, forgive them. Can you imagine that? The people that they're mocking him. There's days at work, there's days in ministry that you're just like, I don't know why I put up with this. And here's Jesus being crucified on the cross, and he said, Father, forgive them. That is next level leadership.
Yeah.
What makes service central to Christianity? Well, I think that one's pretty easy because our job is to be like Christ.
Yeah.
And that was his example.
Exactly. And how can serving others strengthen our faith? I would say that it helps you as a person to serve others, it helps yourself, but ultimately it helps other people as well. And I'd say being humble before others and just wanting others to succeed, wanting others to do well in life, and doing whatever you can to make that happen, it goes a long way for both you and the other person.
Yeah, it's hard. It's easy to say this stuff. We're just going to tell you. I mean, it's not always easy to do it. We're struggling with these same things with you guys. That's why we put these topics together to help other leaders. But I will tell you, when you serve and you put others first, it's amazing how it doesn't seem possible, but you grow with it. And so why is humility difficult for many leaders? Well, many leaders work hard to get to their position and they think, hey, I've arrived. Look at different politicians over the years. You've heard some that think like, maybe Secret Service, I'm better than these guys, or I'm better than the lowly person because I've arrived. But then you see these leaders that step on the scene and they're like, look, I'm here for the people. And it just flips it on its head.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people are so used to, like politician example, they're so used to talking about themselves and why they're better than the other candidate, but they're not always focused on how they can really help other people, which is what they're supposed to be there for.
Yeah, exactly.
What are some examples of servant leadership that stand out in Scripture? I think Jesus is the ultimate example, but I think there's a lot of people throughout the Bible that displayed that by, like take Paul, for example. There's examples of him being positive in horrible situations, and I'd say serving others, no matter his conditions. He was in some pretty rough conditions, but still served others. That's pretty amazing.
When he's imprisoned in his own home, he's writing letters because he's worried about the churches.
Yeah.
And here's another one. What about the woman that brought the high dollar perfume to break it upon Jesus, and it was over a year's worth of income that she sacrificed. I mean, how about the boy with the loaves and the fishes?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the kingdom of God advances through service and servants, not through celebrities.
Exactly.
Let's break down business.
Yeah. So how does serving customers create loyalty?
Why do you think? So how does serving customers create loyalty? Well, I like what Jesse Cole says in there, that he's not worried about creating customers. He's worried about creating fans. And I think when you go in and you're worried about serving others. So this is just something, and again, I throw out a lot of ideas. I've shared this with Tyler. He probably gets tired of hearing it, but we try a lot of stuff, and we know a lot of stuff that don't work. But we try a lot of stuff. So here recently we bought these little stress reliever blue tractors, and we put our name on them. And I gave a whole box load of these to the guys at the parts counter. And when we see a little kid come in, we give it to the little kid and say, hey, man, welcome to the farm, or here's your tractor, or whatever, because we want it to be about the experience, right? And so I think when you're serving a customer, especially like this time of year, a customer calls and he's in need, and you go all out to get him fixed, he's like, man, that guy cares, and he's going to take care of me. And so that right there's your loyalty. Mm-hmm. So, Tyler, why do employees stay with leaders who care?
I think a lot of it's the same with customers. If you treat your own people good, they're going to treat your customers good.
Yep.
and they're going to want to stick around because you do truly care about them. It's not like you're just trying to be a slave driver and just get the most out of them you can for as little as money as possible. If you truly show that you care about them, and even the money aside part, if you just show you care about them and you listen to them, I think that goes a long way and show that you do care about them and that they're a significant part of the team.
I want to break in here and say this. There's been a lot of times that when I first started reading this kind of stuff, I thought, that means that I got to treat everybody nice. And as a leader, sometimes that doesn't mean that. That means that you're going to go above and beyond to take care of people. But also, if you have someone who's underperforming, that means you might have to get rid of that person that's underperforming because you care about the rest of the team. Mm-hmm. Being the leader isn't easy. It's a lonely job, and it's tough.
Exactly.
So what happens when leaders become self-focused?
I think if you're just focusing on how things will affect you and how you can get better, or just how it just affects you, and like, let's say, for example, you're just wondering how you just want to focus on how you make more money. Well, there's a lot of people that aren't going to want to follow you. A lot of customers are not going to want to come to your store because you're just focused on yourself and you're not really focused on taking care of their needs.
Absolutely.
I think it's probably pretty easily to become self-focused unless you try hard to not to.
So what's practical ways that leaders can serve their teams?
I think you mentioned some earlier, but even just go around and talking to people and having a genuine conversation where it's not like you're just being fake about it, but just trying to show that you really care about them. You'd mentioned some different ideas for even birthday cards or just small things like that, showing that you really care about them. I know we usually try to have a pretty big Christmas party, and showing that you care about them and taking the time to get gift baskets and give them a Christmas bonus and stuff like that, but also taking the time to pick out some gifts and having a good meal, and just there's a bunch of small things, but that just kind of came to mind with me, where you can show that you really do care about them.
And the gifts are important, but the giving the gift is what makes the difference.
Yeah. And if you just said, hey guys, there's your basket over there, or you actually take the time and hand it out and thank them and shake their hand and stuff, there's, you could give the same gift, but the way that you give it makes all the difference in the world.
So the best businesses serve people so well that trust becomes their competitive advantage. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. There's probably a lot of times where I myself do it. You could be paying more for a product or service, but it's a company that you trust, so you're willing to do it.
Mm-hmm. And you trust them even when you're like, man, I don't know what. You don't go and nitpick the ticket.
Yeah. You could be like, why is it more expensive? You thought, I trust them.
Yeah. I've got people I do business like that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's talk legacy.
Legacy. So who served you and changed your life? That's a powerful question.
I had a lot of men that through Royal Rangers and around me through ministry and stuff that have really stepped up and showed me the way. And I remember looking at those guys thinking, wow, I want to be like that guy. And those were not people that were like leading, oh, I'm the big boss. These were guys that I wanted to follow because they were inspirational, because they were cleaning up. They got their days before to set up an event, and they were there when the event was long after, cleaning up after everybody gone, and then they were sure following up to make sure everybody enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So what leaders made the greatest impact on you? Coach?
Yeah,
boss?
I'd say there's a lot of them over the years. Some were a lot of positive ones. I mean, I can think back, sometimes there's some negative ones too, but it still impacts me because I think about when I get in a leadership position, I don't want to behave like that. I'm sure we've all had a few of those, but I'd say there's been a lot of coaches over the years and even teachers and different bosses and stuff that have made a big impact. And my time with Royal Rangers and stuff, I've got to see some of those people too, those leaders that they do go the extra mile. Like Travis said, when he was talking about the guys staying to pick up trash, there was at least one guy that came to mind to me that I was pretty impressed when I saw him sticking around picking up trash and with a smile on his face and talking to people and all that kind of stuff. It just was kind of unusual to me, so I was super impressed.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you, my probably greatest impact in my life leader was my dad, and being able to work with him and put some business principles and lay it out there. And sometimes I thought Dad's giving me a lecture, but then I look back and think, man, I'm sure glad he gave me that, Mm-hmm. And I remember this too. How about not just greatest impact? It could have been one of those impacts you're like, whoa, I don't ever want to do that.
Oh, yeah.
So, what do you want people to remember about your leadership?
We talked about how people often remember how you make them feel. I'd say that's a huge thing right there, is just thinking about how you treat them, regardless of the circumstances. I know there's a lot of times where things are going good. It's a little easier to walk around and, hey, how's it going? That type of thing. But when if you go through a tough stretch, or maybe you just had a difficult meeting with somebody, or somebody got frustrated with you, or maybe the year's not looking as good as you thought it was going to be. You can fill in the blank there, but it's a little tougher to go around and show that you truly care about people and not have a scowl on your face or whatever that may be. It's tough to do, but I think trying to do that regardless of your circumstances and regardless of how others are treating you, that is the difference maker.
I think the ultimate legacy is what you leave when you're gone. And so that's when people, and you don't have to wait till you're gone, you're building it now. But, you show up and there's 4 people at your funeral, and it's the banker, the insurance guy, and the people you do business with. That's probably not the greatest legacy. But if you show up and there's a room full of people that said, I showed up here because he cared about me, that's a legacy.
Yeah. You think about, you don't want it just to be like someone's like, well, man, that guy, whatever it is you're doing, if you're selling or you're working, you don't want people just to remember that's what you do. You want people to remember the legacy that you leave behind of how you treated people. I'd say that's a big difference.
So people might forget your position, but they rarely forget your impact.
Exactly.
So it's time to execute, right?
Yeah.
You going to lay down the challenge?
Yep. Let's think about our challenge this week. So this week, intentionally serve someone who can do nothing for you in return. And here's a big one. Don't post about it. Don't announce it. Don't expect recognition. Just serve. And ask yourself, am I trying to build influence, or am I trying to help people? Now, there's times where I see those videos on YouTube or whatever where it's this guy's, today we're buying a meal for a homeless guy. And I mean, it's still good if they do it, but you don't want to be doing it just for the views on YouTube or whatever. You want to be doing it to actually truly help someone, and to think about are you trying to build influence, or are you trying to help people?
Yeah, because leaders who leave the greatest legacy are the ones that have make the greatest investment in others.
Exactly.
So we've laid it out, and we've given the challenge, and now it's time.
Now it's time to execute.
Strategies for success. We lead, we build, we bless. Faith in the fight, a vision inside. And legacy is our quest. Strategies for success. With courage we invest. Faith, business, legacy. That's our strategy for success.